The mahogany doors of the Reynolds estate library closed with a finality that echoed through Adrian's chest. Across the antique desk, his father's expression remained stone-cold, while his mother dabbed at invisible tears with a monogrammed handkerchief. "Have until tomorrow evening to end this ridiculous infatuation with that, ... Shopkeeper Harrison Reynolds said, straightening his custom suit jacket. "Camilla Blackwood comes from an impeccable lineage. The merger between our families would secure the Reynolds dynasty for generations." Adrian ran his fingers through his dark hair, exhaustion settling into his bones. For 3 generations, the Reynolds family had married strategically, building wealth through calculated unions rather than love. "Alina isn't an infatuation, Father. I love her."
Victoria Renskop, the love.
"What does love have to do with your responsibility to this family? We've given you everything, except choice," Adrian replied quietly. Harrison slammed his palm against the desk. "You've had every privilege imaginable. Harvard education, connections throughout the financial world, a trust fund most would kill for, and now you're using it all to control me." His father's voice dropped dangerously. "Make no mistake, Adrian. Choose this girl, and you choose to walk away from everything. Your inheritance, your position at Reynolds Holdings, your trust fund, all of it." Adrian stood, surprising himself with his steadiness. Just yesterday, the thought of losing his family fortune would have terrified him. But after meeting Elena Navarro at her small bookstore downtown 6 months ago, his priorities had shifted. Her warmth, intelligence, and genuine spirit had awakened. Something in him that decades of wealth never had. "Then I choose Elena," his mother gasped dramatically. "Would throw away generations of wealth for a girl who sells used books. She built that bookstore from nothing after immigrating here. She works harder than anyone I've ever met." Harrison's face reddened. "You have 24 hours to reconsider before you're cut off completely." The next evening, Adrian stood in the same library, a single suitcase beside him. His parents' expressions confirmed they hadn't expected him to follow through. "This is your final decision?" Harrison asked coldly. "It is." "Then you are no longer a Reynolds. Turn your company keys and credit cards to Jeffers on your way out." Adrian placed his wallet on the desk, removing only his driver's license and a single personal debit card. "Goodbye, Father, Mother." As the estate gates closed behind him, Adrian felt a strange lightness despite everything he'd lost. His phone buzzed with a message from Alina. "Whatever happened, we'll figure it out together. I love you." For the first time in his life, Adrian felt truly rich. The 1-bedroom apartment above Rodriguez's bakery smelled perpetually of cinnamon and yeast. Adrian stared at the ceiling, listening to the early morning sounds of dough being kneaded downstairs. Beside him, Alina slept peacefully. Her dark curls spread across the pillow they shared. 6 months had passed since the Reynolds family had excommunicated their only son. Adrian had quickly learned how rapidly doors closed when your last name no longer carried financial weight. His former friends stopped returning calls, and networking events became exercises in invisibility. Alina stirred beside him. "You're thinking too loudly again," she murmured, eyes still closed. "Sorry," Adrian whispered, kissing her forehead. "Just planning the day." Alina propped herself up on one elbow. "The interview at Tetchwave." Adrian nodded. "And I need to finish the prototype sketches for the biodegradable packaging system." Since childhood, Adrian had been fascinated by environmental science, a passion his father dismissed as hippie nonsense. Now, without the pressure to join Reynolds Holdings, he was pursuing his true interest: sustainable packaging alternatives for the food industry. "You'll get it," Alina said with unwavering confidence. "Your designs are brilliant." The interview at Tetchwave went poorly. The hiring manager, a former acquaintance of Harrison Reynolds, had mysteriously decided the position was no longer available. Adrian walked the 3 miles home, saving the bus fare for groceries. At Elena's bookstore, turning pages, he found her helping an elderly customer find a first edition Hemingway. The small shop, with its mismatched chairs and carefully curated collection, had become Adrian's sanctuary. In the back room, Alina had cleared a space for him to work on his designs. That evening, they sat on their tiny balcony, sharing a modest dinner of pasta and cheap wine. I've been thinking, Alina said, refilling their glasses. My cousin Javier works at that new eco-focused venture capital firm, Green Future Investments. He could introduce you to someone there. They wouldn't be interested in someone with no track record, Adrian sighed. They invest in ideas, not pedigrees, Alina insisted. And your biodegradable food packaging system is exactly what they look for. 2 weeks later, Adrian found himself pitching to Sophia Patel, a sharp-eyed investor at Green Future. Your design solves 2 problems simultaneously, Sophia noted, examining his prototype. It's impressive. I've been developing it for years, Adrian admitted, just never had the chance to pursue it seriously until now. Why now? Sophia asked bluntly. Adrian hesitated before answering honestly. I chose a different path than my family expected. This is the first time I'm building something that's truly mine. Sophia studied him thoughtfully. Green Future can offer you seed funding, but it's modest. You'd be starting small. Small is all I need, Adrian replied. I just need to begin. As they walked home after signing the preliminary agreement, Alina squeezed his hand. See, sometimes closed doors lead to better rooms. Adrian looked at her, this woman who believed in him when no one else did, and realized he'd never felt more fortunate. Ecorop is pleased to announce our expansion into European markets, Adrian stated calmly to the assembled journalists. 4 years had transformed his small startup into an industry disruptor. The biodegradable food packaging system he'd developed had been adopted by restaurant chains across North America. And now Europe beckoned. Behind the podium, Adrian looked different than the man who had walked away from the Reynolds fortune. His suits were now tailored, but selected for quality rather than status. His confidence came from achievement rather than entitlement. In the audience, Alina watched proudly, though she still ran her bookstore. She had become EcoWrap's unofficial chief of culture, ensuring the company maintained its values as it grew. The couple had moved from their tiny apartment to a modest house, choosing to reinvest most profits back into the company. Mr. Reynolds, is it true your technology has reduced plastic waste by over 30 million pounds this year alone? A reporter called out. That's correct, Adrian replied. But we're just getting started. After the press conference, Adrian and Alina walked through ICOARP's new headquarters, greeting employees by name. Unlike Reynolds Holdings' sterile corporate environment, ICOARP's offices were filled with plants, natural light, and collaborative spaces. Did you see the business section today? Alina asked as they entered Adrian's office. She handed him the newspaper. A smaller headline caught his eye. Reynolds Holdings facing takeover amid financial troubles. Adrian skimmed the article detailing his father's company's struggles following several failed investments and a scandal involving toxic materials in their overseas factories. I heard they're selling the estate, Alina said quietly. Adrian set down the paper. They made their choices just as I made mine. That evening, as they prepared dinner together in their kitchen, Adrian's phone rang with an unfamiliar number. Adrian. Reynolds, he answered. Adrian. His mother's voice sounded older, stripped of its usual haughtiness. I hope I'm not disturbing you. Adrian nearly dropped the phone. Mother, this is ... unexpected? Yes. Well, Victoria paused awkwardly. I've been following your company's success. Our father would never admit it, but what you've built is quite remarkable. Adrian said nothing, waiting. The truth is, Victoria continued, her voice strained, we're facing some difficulties. Your father's health isn't good, and the company's situation is ... challenging. I'm sorry to hear that, Adrian replied neutrally. Perhaps we could meet, just to talk. Families should support each other during difficult times. Alina watched Adrian's expression carefully as he responded. Interesting that you remember I'm family now. After ending the call, Adrian stared out the window at the garden they'd planted together. They're only reaching out because they need something, he said finally. Alina touched his arm gently. What will you do? Adrian turned to her, the woman, who had stood by him when he had nothing. Focus on those who were there during the building, not just the harvest. The Forbes magazine cover featured Adrian standing before EcoWrap's solar-powered manufacturing facility. The headline read, The Green Billionaire. How Adrian Reynolds Built a Sustainable Fortune. Inside, a 12-page spread detailed eco-wraps. Meteoric rise in Adrian's journey from disinherited son to environmental tech mogul. Did you have to tell them about my family? Adrian asked the publicist as they reviewed the article in EcoWrap's conference room. Talia shrugged apologetically. He didn't say it was off limits, and honestly it makes for a compelling narrative. Disowned heir builds bigger fortune than the one he walked away from. People eat that up. Lena squeezed his hand under the table. 7 years had passed since that fateful day in the Reynolds library. EcoWrap now employed over 5,000 people globally, and its valuation had recently crossed the billion-dollar threshold. More importantly to Adrian, the company had pioneered environmental manufacturing practices that competitors were scrambling to adopt. The article mentions the Emerald Gala next month, Talia continued. As honorary chair this year, you'll need to prepare remarks. The annual charity event supported environmental education initiatives worldwide. This year, it would be held at the Grand Metropolitan Hotel owned by the Blackwood family, whose daughter Camilla Adrian had once been pressured to marry. After the meeting, Adrian's assistant Marcus intercepted him. Sir, I've received 3 calls from Harrison Reynolds' office today. They're quite insistent about speaking with you. Adrian sighed. Since the Forbes article had hit newsstands, his parents' attempts at contact had intensified.
My
Schedule is full. That evening, as Adrian and Alina prepared for a quiet dinner at home, the doorbell rang. Their housekeeper Marta appeared in the doorway, looking uncomfortable. Mr. and Mrs. Reynolds are here, sir? Adrian and Alina exchanged shocked glances before Adrian nodded.
ass.
Show them to the living room. Harrison and Victoria Reynolds looked diminished somehow. Harrison's once imposing frame seemed smaller in his expensive but slightly outdated suit. Victoria's carefully maintained appearance showed signs of strain around her eyes. Adrian Harrison began, his voice lacking its former authority. You look well. What can I do for you? Adrian asked directly. Victoria stepped forward. Come to congratulate you, of course. Your success is
remarkable.
After 7 years of silence, Harrison cleared his throat. We may have been hasty in our judgment. The company you've built, the fortune you've amassed, it's impressive. You've proven yourself a true Reynolds after all. It didn't build a co-wrap to prove anything to you, Adrian stated flatly. Victoria's eyes darted around the tastefully appointed home. We thought perhaps it's time to reconcile. Families should stand together, especially now that you've established yourself so successfully. Alina, who had remained silent, finally spoke. Interesting timing. Harrison's expression hardened momentarily before he forced a smile. We'd like to invite you both to dinner at the club, celebrate your achievements, and discuss family matters. Adrian studied his parents, seeing clearly the calculation behind their sudden appearance. I appreciate the gesture, but I'm afraid we have plans. As Marta showed his parents out, Adrian stood at the window, watching them climb into their luxury sedan leased. According to the Forbes investigation, are you okay? Lena asked softly. Adrian turned to her. I am. For the first time, I truly am. The Emerald Gala transformed the Grand Metropolitan's ballroom into an enchanted forest, sustainable materials creating a breathtaking environment. As honorary chair, Adrian moved through the crowd with Elena beside him, greeting philanthropists, environmental activists, and business leaders who had paid $50,000 per table to support global conservation efforts. Alina looked radiant in an emerald gown made by an ethical fashion designer. Unlike many of the society women present, she wore minimal jewelry, just her wedding band and a pair of simple earrings Adrian had given her on their first anniversary. When they could barely afford rent, your speech is in 20 minutes, Alina reminded him, accepting 2 glasses of champagne from a passing waiter. Adrian nodded, then froze as he spotted his parents across the room. Harrison and Victoria Reynolds were speaking animatedly with the Blackwoods, including Camilla, who had married a European count 3 years earlier. They weren't on the guest list, Adrian muttered. The Blackwoods probably invited them, Alina reasoned. This is their hotel, after all. Throughout the evening, Adrian noticed his parents strategically positioning themselves near influential attendees, dropping his name into conversations. When the time came for his speech, they maneuvered. 2 prominent positions near the stage, at the podium, Adrian surveyed the glittering crowd. Thank you all for supporting the Environmental Education Initiative tonight. 7 years ago, when I started EcoRap, I learned that true wealth isn't measured by bank accounts, but by impact. As Adrian spoke about sustainable business practices, he saw his mother nudging people nearby, whispering proudly as if she'd been supportive all along. Success means nothing if not shared with those who believed in you from the beginning, Adrian continued. I'd like to acknowledge the one person who stood by me when I had nothing but an idea and determination. My wife, Alina. Spotlight found Alina, who smiled warmly. When I was at my lowest point, having lost my family and financial security, Alina never doubted me. She worked extra hours at her bookstore to support us while I developed prototypes in our apartment above a bakery. She's the true foundation of everything we've built. Adrian could see his parents' smiles faltering. I've learned that family isn't defined by bloodlines or last names, but by who stands with you during the storm, not just the sunshine. Tonight, I'm announcing the Elena Navarro Reynolds Scholarship Fund, providing $50 million to support immigrant entrepreneurs with sustainable business ideas. The crowd erupted in applause as Alina joined Adrian on stage, genuine surprise in her eyes. Later, as they danced, Harrison and Victoria approached them. Wonderful speech, son, Harrison said loudly. We always knew you had potential. Adrian regarded his parents calmly. Did you? I recall different words. Victoria laughed nervously. Families have disagreements. Water under the bridge now? Actually, Adrian said, his voice kind but firm, it's not. You disowned me because I chose love over strategic advantage. You're here tonight not because you're proud of me, but because you think my success might benefit you somehow. Harrison's face reddened. Now see here, I don't hate you, Adrian continued. I've built a good life, one based on values rather than valuables, if you'd like. To know your son as the man he's become, I'm open to that, but only with honesty between us. As his parents stood speechless, Adrian guided Alina away to where their real family waited, friends, colleagues, and supporters who had been there for the journey, not just the destination. Was that okay? Adrian whispered to Alina. She smiled. Squeezing his hand, it was perfect. You didn't close the door, but you didn't let them walk through it without acknowledging what happened. Adrian looked around at the gala he had helped create, raising millions for causes they believed in. You know, I'm actually grateful they disowned me. Oh, if they hadn't, I might never have discovered what true fortune really is. As they continued dancing under the sustainable starlight effect, Adrian realized he was, indeed, the richest man in the room, not because of his billion-dollar company, but because he had chosen love, integrity, and purpose over expectation, tradition, and inheritance. And that was a fortune no one could ever take away.